These companies are now using AI to moderate all of this content. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out from a censorship standpoint, because before it was how many people can Facebook or TikTok employ to moderate what's going on. Now you have very sophisticated AI algorithms that are going to be unleashed on the uploads of the various content, and how that's going to affect the big picture in terms of communication and what people are sharing and what actually ends up in your feed, depending on what they think your leaning is from a political or social standpoint.
Howdy, and welcome to Cooper's Code. This is the AI issue, and we're joined with Shahrad Milanfar. And today, unfortunately, Marshall Cole is in trial. And for those of you who are keeping the score in terms of Marshall Cole being in trial, he's got a pattern. So he's either like a DA or somebody who doesn't settle out much. So if you're trying to stalk him and learn about him from handling the podcast, know that you may have a trial on your hands. So we wish him the best of luck there and look forward to him joining when we return. So Shahrad, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to return to this after having a little bit of a holiday break. I wanted to kind of jump right into it. You had flagged something that sounds like it could be very interesting to watch, and that is February 9th. Those who want to see Mark Zuckerberg take the stand in trial get the opportunity. You want to go into a little bit of this story?
Yeah, so basically the Daily Journal has reported and other outfits have reported that their trials that are the social media addiction trials are getting ready to go down in Los Angeles, and Mark Zuckerberg is slated to testify in that case. And the case on the plaintiff side, it's one of the bellwether cases, is being handled by the famed trial lawyer Mark Lanier. So it just as a human being and as an attorney, it would be great to watch that interaction. Apparently, plaintiffs have asked the court to allow the proceedings to be recorded, and the defense is indicating that they're going to file motions to essentially exclude any kind of cameras or recording in the courtroom. So it'll be interesting to see what the court does with that. Apparently, WhatsApp and TikTok, or ByteDance, I guess it is, on one of the subsidiaries of TikTok, have settled out, but Meta and Google are still in the case. So we'll see how that pans out. But ByteDance was the one that actually settled apparently either today or last night, because the news came out this morning about that.
That should be really interesting. And we don't generally see the CEOs of companies taking the stand in cases like this. For those who are following along, this is in LA Superior Court. I don't know that it will be live streamed, or if it's going to be on court TV. I don't know if you know the answer to that.
I don't. I mean, sometimes CVN, Courtroom View Network, is involved, but I don't believe the court has ruled on it yet. So hopefully it's on CVN, and people can watch it there or on court TV, because I think it'll be of interest to just the general public and the legal community as a whole.
Yeah, the information that may come out in terms of what these large entities are doing in terms of gathering data, in terms of tailoring content, and in terms of getting us addicted to the scroll, whether it be children or adults.
At the same time, having Montessori schools in their own homes that do not allow the use of any electronics by their own children.
Right.
So that's an interesting juxtaposition in terms of, hey, all these apps are great for your kids, but not mine, even though the amount of revenue that comes in is directly tied to all these eyeballs that are stuck on these apps for hours a day.
As we're talking about that, there's also the consolidation within the media landscape overall. And here we're referring to TikTok and what's being done with TikTok as far as its ownership is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the TikTok now, it's been taken over by the Ellison-led investor group in the United States. So the Chinese interests presumably have been divested, and they're very aggressively moderating the content now. And a lot of creators and social media influencers are complaining that if they say something that's not consistent with the philosophies of Ellison and his cohort, that those pieces of content are being thwarted and they're not getting any views on it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out from a censorship standpoint and how these companies are now using AI to moderate all of this content. Because before it was how many people can Facebook or TikTok employ to moderate what's going on. Now you have very sophisticated AI algorithms that are going to be unleashed on the uploads of the various content and how that's going to affect the big picture in terms of communication and what people are sharing and what actually ends up in your feed, depending on what they think your leaning is from a political or social standpoint.
One of the things that I'm hearing from you as a potential takeaway, as far as how it relates to AI and the law, is that as this consolidation continues, as this AI tool for moderation continues, we run the risk of having tremendous power held by very few over what is being seen by everyone, including potential jurors.
Absolutely. I mean, it really is a matter of who gets to have a voice, and the fact that there is basically the federal government is trying to tell the states you cannot legislate and put any safeguards on any of these AI platforms. So what we don't understand is, okay, what are they creating, right? And somebody described this, I think we talked about that during the ADC conference, is a black box, and it's being fed a tremendous amount of power, but yet they really don't understand what it can do. But on top of that, they're giving it now, instead of letting it train and kind of be on a neutral plane, they're giving it essentially a very biased training where if I say something or you say something that doesn't necessarily line up with the owner's views, you're going to be called or labeled as an enemy of some sort. And that's very disturbing, just from a place of living in this country that's very unique in its approach to having a voice and the First Amendment.
Within the concerns of having a voice, privacy, your own awareness, have you done anything lately in terms of Google and updated privacy policies around making sure that you're doing the best you can to protect yourself as we move forward with more and more consolidation?
That's interesting because, as you know, and anybody who's tried to read a privacy policy in online finds out that these are incredibly complex documents. And I think when it came to these online forums, I think it was Judge John Roberts who was quoted as saying that he doesn't even read these things when he clicks on them, right? So it's a problem because you're clicking on things and that then may have consequences down the road. So Google sent out an email saying we've changed our privacy policies. And I clicked on it just to look at it. And it's this incredibly long document. So I'm like, all right, how can I digest this a little bit easier and figure out how I can delete my information if I choose to do so? So I took that document or link and I put it on Notebook LM and I said, give me a synopsis. And I asked it questions, and it can give you information about this is how you go about deleting your personal information. It's a 5-step process that it creates. So there are creative ways to use it to make it efficient for you to essentially counteract some of the things that we're seeing, because presumably if you are able to delete your personal data out of Google, then that lessens some of the information that they have on you. And also California just passed the law where you can go in and tell data brokers to delete your information, which is also a great thing in my opinion, because you should have a choice as to what information about you is being sold out there and how that's being used to market to you and, try to figure out how they can essentially get you to buy things.
And for those who are interested in what Shahrad just referenced, that is the DROP, DROP program through the state of California. And you can go on there and fill out the form to help reduce your overall profile and tell data brokers that this is not something that they can have. Is that fair?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And also, the other thing is, I think Apple just instituted a function on your iPhone where you can essentially have the person say who they are before your phone rings, so that it would help reduce on some of the spam calls that we get on our phone at least 2-3 times a day minimum.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Of course, then there's that flip side. And I mean, this is not the AI episode, but this is something that I'll always worry about as a service-oriented personal injury lawyer, which is it's that number that I don't recognize. It doesn't say spam. Is this somebody who's trying to get a hold of me? And if I
Yes.
don't pick it up, what happens?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think your family and my family can have a robust discussion about why we take calls at times where we should not be paying attention to our phone. But that is a real fear that we all have as personal injury lawyers.
Yes. It'd be a different abbreviation than FOMO. FOPI, fear of personal injury case loss. I don't know. But in the realm of AI, we talked a little bit again before we got on about some of the bigger moves that are going on in the legal AI marketplace. A lot of news this week about Harvey's acquisition of another company called Hexis. For those who are not familiar, Harvey is one of the larger AI platforms in the legal space, primarily marketing to larger entities. And I know that there are some personal injury firms that are using it. On the whole, though, they tend to be more of the big firm platform. And did you have any thoughts on their acquisition on Hexis in terms of what it says in terms of Hexis being product demonstrations and video guides to help people learn how to use products?
My only observation is that basically consolidation seems to be the consistent pattern with companies and private equity, right? We're seeing it in the space of Netflix wanting to buy other companies and Ellison wanting to buy all these media companies. And the question is, at some point, is there going to be the return on investment? Is it really going to be there? Because the amounts of money that are being put on the table for some of these things, you just kind of scratch your head and say, wow, like, how did you calculate the valuation on these things? And that then leads into the whole issue about the AI bubble and whether it's real or whether it's not. But again, hopefully somebody at Harvey had a plan and understood exactly what they were acquiring and why they were acquiring it. Because again, having to go to my boss and tell them we're spending this much money, there better be a good why and a strategic plan on the return on that investment.
I think some of the things that caught my attention in this particular deal was Harvey's current $8 billion valuation in terms of its last funding round. And I had forgotten, but Andreessen Horowitz is one of the VCs backing it, and that's a VC backer who's known for making wise decisions in terms of what they've invested in. So when you see that valuation, when you see the backing, for me, leads me to believe that this is potentially going somewhere. The flip side of that is that's a huge valuation. And while there is a fair amount of money in the legal marketplace, is the amount of money that's being generated from law firms likely to justify that kind of an expenditure?
The question really is going to be whether this is being looked at as something that's essentially an investment that's going to go directly to law firms, or is this private equity playing their card in setting up systems that's going to allow them in markets such as Arizona, where they're allowed to own law firms without attorney owners, to undercut the pricing model of the large firms that exist in those markets. And we've seen 30 attorney groups leaving their traditional firms to go to firms like KPMG and establish these, pseudo law firms that operate in, Arizona and other places. But the question they all are going to have to ask themselves is, at some point, once you set this thing up, are they going to say, well, you know what, we don't really need you. We can pay some junior associates and Harvey's going to run the show. And if that's the play, then there's potentially a significant upswing that they can take advantage of in terms of pulling revenue away from these traditional firms.
I think you were the one who pointed out long ago to me, eons ago in the world of AI, like 6 months ago, that if you have a AI tool that say costs $50,000 a year, but it allows you to treat it like a junior associate or a junior paralegal and be the equivalent of multiples of those, then you're actually are looking at a cost savings overall.
Right. That's the analysis that they have to make, right? And when you look at these companies that are coming in to undercut the large defense firms or the traditional large firms, they're looking at it from the business perspective of, we can do this in a way that's cheaper for you, and paying for Harvey at whatever, probably, $400 or $500 a month for that service, and to cut out an attorney whose salary is significantly higher than that. That's something they're going to tell their clients, and then the clients are going to look at it and say, well, this is a huge savings on defense or mergers and acquisitions or whatever. And that could have a significant ripple effect in the industry. Now, you're still going to have humans who are going to review things as we've discussed before. But again, if that can eliminate the first draft and get you to a point where you can eliminate 2 or 3 people on your team, that's a huge savings that they're going to force the firms and companies to go into.
We had probably about a month and a half since we last got together. Are there things that you've been playing around in the interim that have been making you happy, making you interested, whether that be in the field of prompting or other tools, other toys?
Mostly, it seems to me that all these AI systems are getting better. And the more creative we are, the better we're going to be able to utilize them. So again, this is kind of an old theme, but keep looking at the different AI systems. Like Notebook LM has certain utilities, and they're now adding more topics to it, where you can do the infographics and slide decks, and the podcast feature now has it. So if, let's say, you and I are talking, we could have a caller call in and ask a question, and it'll adapt the podcast based on the real-time question that's coming in. I mean, these are things that have happened in the last 6 months. So as imperfect as these systems are, where you should be very vigilant and to make sure that you're not sending anything out the door without human eyes checking them, they're improving significantly and making things so that we can be more efficient. And as we've talked about, myself having a smaller firm, we're able to stand up to much larger firms because we're able to look at the big picture and utilize various technologies that are available to streamline our approach.
In that vein, and if I've asked you this in the past on air and you've answered it already, forgive me, but do you use Copilot? And by Copilot, I'm referring to Microsoft's product that it is embedded into Office, Outlook, other places. Is that something that you've felt comfortable turning on and talking back to you, or is it something that you've left alone for now, given some of the privacy concerns?
I haven't utilized it in the sense of looking at specific case-related information, but what I've used is, we have Clio, and it has an AI component to it, so I've used that. And then Anthropic's Claude is able to do what's called projects, which are very useful because you can put some information in there and then you can use that as an example. So if we have things that we want to utilize and use as templates, those are things that we can feed into it, and then it can do what it needs to do. And based on my research on it, is the most secure out of the other enterprise products that are available. So it makes it so that it's doing a better job of being consistent with what we want based on the information that we're feeding it. And it's in a closed loop, not training the larger model.
Simultaneous to that, independent of whether it is closed loop or keeping your data quiet, Google has really been making a push lately with Gemini. When you open Chrome, when you use other tools, it definitely is getting in your face in terms of trying to be there as a resource for you. Is that something that you've found is useful in a legal space? Has that impacted you at all?
I know that what Google is doing is basically trying to make their, search engine an AI search engine, right? I mean, they would be dumb not to do it. From a legal standpoint, I haven't really gotten into it because obviously there's some concerns like we're not going to put client information in there, but it does have utility in the sense that, you have a case against a publicly traded company. You can ask them, Gemini, to give you a deep dive research paper on that company's finances. And, I did that 2 days ago on a case that we have that's a wrongful death case, and the company's publicly traded. So when we ran the company, it was clear that despite their assertions that, we don't have that much money, they have $300 million in cash on hand, and they're more than able to, essentially cover the case, and their insurance becomes irrelevant. So for us as legal consumers, knowing which particular AI engine to use, I think is important because it'll provide you with better information, where I'm not sure if I went to ChatGPT, I would have gotten the same sort of research on it, but maybe, somebody else has done it. And I figured Gemini was the most powerful engine when it comes to searching publicly available information about a publicly traded company.
That makes a lot of sense. As we talk about some of the larger companies, grabbing your crystal ball, do you have any prediction in the legal world as to whether the Elon Musk versus OpenAI suit will actually get to trial? I know it passed the motion to dismiss hurdle, and so they get the opportunity of trial. Do you think they'll actually get there?
I think I have to put my mediator hat on that one, for that one. But based on the animosity that I've seen between Elon Musk and Sam Altman, if it goes to trial, and I think it's very likely, it's going to be in a very entertaining trial. So I would love to see it televised so we can see what these guys have to say and how they're going to prove their case against each other.
Yeah, well, and kind of we talk, I think, a little bit at the beginning of the case of the opportunity to see certain people, Mark Zuckerberg in trial. We've got the potential of seeing some big people in trial in the coming year. Should be very interesting just from the spectator side of the law and seeing what people have to say and where things go.
Well, and I think that kind of dovetails into this whole issue of what's happening in AI in terms of autonomous driving, right? With these rideshare services and specifically Uber attempting to essentially strip consumers of their rights to pursue litigation when they're injured, and simultaneously trying to get rid of their drivers, which means that they're trying to insulate themselves from liability caused by their imperfect driving systems that are going to be run by their AIs. And that creates product liability issues. It creates access to justice issues. And as human beings and consumers, we have to ask ourselves, how could we possibly blindly say, yeah, you know what, Uber, you're never going to have any liability if your car hits and kills a child in the crosswalk. And it's just amazing to me that a company like that would just attempt to even pass that kind of legislation because it's just so unconscionable on its face.
We're seeing some unconscionable things happening in this world right now, aren't we?
Yeah, a little bit. That's an understatement.
Yeah. Well, anything else you think we should touch on in the tech episode?
I don't remember if we talked about this before, but the American Arbitration Association has now released an AI arbitrator for...
No. Oh, this is news to me. Now, this is interesting.
So they've released a module that's an AI arbitrator, and I believe it's marketed as an arbitrator for like construction defect type cases. And that's something that they're trying to push out there. But I suspect, a lot of the carriers, they do a lot of arbitrations between themselves behind the scenes with cases that they pay out on and stuff. So maybe that'll take off there. But to me, it's just amazing that you would just remove the human out of it and you would want an AI arbitrator to arbitrate your case. I don't know who would actually submit to that, but that's a product that they just released a few months ago.
It sounds like the equivalent of a digital table saw splitting the baby. The parallel piece of that seems like if that was a tool that was going to be regularly used, that you'd see if you could try to model it to see what your outcome would be so that you know what your best alternative to a negotiated outcome is.
There is a paper, I think, that came out from Columbia University that did that, and their models clearly were wrong in their approach. And they actually, I think it was Grok, they asked, and initially Grok said, this case is worth like $25 million. And then later on, when they asked it additional questions, said, oh, on second thought, it's $2 million.
Yeah.
That's a pretty large swing to consider in terms of the results. And again, there is a reason we go to trial is that human piece of it is something that's going to be very difficult for them to emulate in terms of AI analysis. Now, could it give you some idea of what would work and what wouldn't work? Probably, but is it definitive? I doubt it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. For all you listening out there, if you are seeing anything new or cool that you want to bring to our attention, if you are using the arbitration AI and get outcomes, would love to hear what those are. And otherwise, if you're listening and you like what we're doing, please give us a 5-star review on your platform of choice. To all of you doing justice out there, happy hunting.